Welcome back. We're talking to Nigel Farage today, leader of the UK Independence Party, who saw a lot of what's happening in Europe coming. He believes the recent election results we've seen mark a democratic rebellion in countries like Greece. So we talked about what this means for other countries that are heavily indebted in Europe and have also seen their borrowing costs rise. Take a listen. Spain and Italy and countries that have seen their borrowing costs rise, do you think that we'll see them put more of their vote behind parties that are anti-austerity, that are opposed to eurozone solutions?
The tragedy of the eurozone was this. If you look at historic long-term charts and you look at Portuguese, Spanish and Greek interest rates and look at Deutschmark rates, and what you see through the 70s and 80s and 90s is a big gap. German rates relatively low and rates in the Mediterranean countries relatively high. As they approached joining the euro, they converged. And so what you had in these countries, and in Ireland too, effectively, you had interest rates that were 3 or 4% lower than they should have been for 7 years. It was like being at a party where your glass is being topped up all the time. Free money. It led to the most incredible speculative boom in property. It led in Greece to governments using this money to pay the public sector more, to allow people to retire earlier. It was a completely false, totally false economy that had been set up by totally artificial interest rates. And now, of course, what is happening is the spread, having narrowed, has widened out again as the markets say these governments are effectively bankrupt and we're not going to get our money back. So that's the tragedy of the euro. It should never have happened. Those of us that warned about this over 10 years ago were written off as being mad. We were told that economics had been reinvented. It has not.
Yeah, and people that have been warning about this, as you said, you have been gaining more and more popularity. In the UK local elections, you saw a lot of success. Your party, the UK Independence Party, the Eurosceptic Party, which wants the UK to leave the EU, saw its best ever local election results, averaging about 14% of the vote, where you had candidates standing reportedly at the expense of conservatives. So to what extent do you think the increase in your party's support is based on its stance on Europe versus other aspects of, for example, your domestic platform?
Well, I think the debate on Europe in the United Kingdom used to be about something called sovereignty. It used to be about who governs Britain. And necessarily, as a party in the early days, we talked about these things and we warned how bad the European Union would be for British democracy. Much as that was a very important argument, it didn't necessarily always appeal to the man in the street. But now what we talk about is not just who governs Britain, but how Britain should be governed. Because out there, across the United Kingdom, there are millions of people who now realise that the laws that are made in Europe directly impact their lives. We've got over 4 million small businesses who are drowning in employment regulations, in health and safety regulations, in environmental regulations. We've got an open-door immigration policy, a total open door to the whole of Eastern Europe. Anybody that wants to come to Britain from Poland can, and into the bargain, if they fill in the right forms, they qualify for housing benefit within 2 weeks. You know, people are getting very angry. We ourselves have got economic problems. We've got youth unemployment running at 21%. All the while, we have this open-door immigration policy. So UKIP is not seen anymore to be a party talking about some sort of, highfalutin intellectual idea. We're a party addressing the everyday concerns of ordinary people, and we're a party now offering solutions. We're not just saying, Europe's awful, send a protest. We're now saying, vote for UKIP, because we're putting together a plan of how an independent Britain could and should be run.
So then are these, for example, a Conservative MP was quoted in a British paper saying that the gains your party has seen aren't just about Europe, which sounds like what you're saying, suggesting that this was a protest vote against Conservatives. So are those all of the issues that they're protesting against, if this MP's statement is true to an extent?
Whenever a new force in politics emerges, the mainstream, or the mainstream at that moment in time, will always try and write off that surge in support as it being a protest vote. Well, there is quite a lot in Britain to protest about at the moment, so I wouldn't blame people for voting UKIP as a protest vote, but just look at our manifesto. You know, we're the people saying we don't want to pay £50 million a day to be a member of this club. We're the people saying we want Britain to be a self-governing democracy. We're the people saying we want to stop open-door immigration. We're the party saying we want to reopen the links that we used to have with the Commonwealth and the English-speaking world. We're the party saying we want children who come from poor backgrounds to get the best possible educational opportunities, and that used to be afforded by the grammar school system that we had. And above all, we're the party saying we are a party that believes in enterprise. We're a party that believes in hard work. We're a party that believes that you can't have schools and hospitals and the good things in life unless you've got people out there working, making profits and paying taxes. And so I think really to write off the rise in the UKIP vote, and we're up about 10% since the last general election on these recent local government scores, to write it off as simply being a protest vote, frankly, smacks of people in the establishment at the moment sticking their heads in the sand and just not recognising that there is a massive, massive political change that is taking place in the United Kingdom, and I would add, across the rest of Europe too.
Fair enough. I hear your point. It sounds like it's also part of a broader European trend. Now, I also want to note that you are the party, Mr. Farage, opposed to non-wine, I suppose. At least you had a non-wine party today. This is the tasting of a fruit-derived non-alcoholic beverage from one of the UK's leading wine producers. Sounds a little odd. Tell us what this is about and why this is a political issue for your party.
Let me give you the story. In my home county of Kent, we have a wine producer called Chapel Down, and they make very good sparkling wines and white wines, and they've won awards, and they're doing terribly well. They were contacted by an Argentinian company who said the 17th of April is World Malbec Day. What if we ship you across a container of Argentinian Malbec grapes, and you turn that into wine, and we do a joint venture, and we sell that product in England? And the Chapel Down winery said, yeah, that's absolutely fine, no problem at all. Until the mad bureaucrats from the Commission in Brussels intervened, and they ordered the company that they could not sell this product as wine. They had to sell it as a fruit-derived alcoholic drink made from produce imported from outside the European Union. I think it is just about the most balmy, absolutely insane piece of meddling from bureaucrats I've ever seen in my life. And today, the 9th of May, is Europe Day, when we're all supposed to celebrate how absolutely wonderful the European Union is. So I've just thrown a party to celebrate the total absurdity of this European project. You know, it's rather like the people that run this project. You know, they're in the temple, the walls are crashing down all around them, and all they can do is tell a firm in Kent that they cannot sell a product they've made as wine. It is total and utter nonsense. And really, there's a serious point here, because it gets to the heart of much of what is happening across the Western world. The real battle that is going on here is a battle of democracy versus bureaucracy. And what we want to do in UKIP is get back to living in a democracy. We may well vote for governments that are absolutely useless, but at least once every 4 or 5 years, we'll get the chance to turf the lot out and to replace them with somebody else. But to think that here we are, paying in, dutifully, our £50 million a day so that a bureaucrat can tell a Kentish wine producer that his product is not wine. It absolutely beautifully, for me, on Europe Day, sums up what a complete nonsense this whole thing is.
You are entitled to elections and calling your wine wine. I obviously misspoke if you didn't catch it when I called it a non-alcoholic fruit beverage. I obviously meant an alcoholic one, as Nigel Farage much more eloquently explained why. That was Farage. He's leader of the UK Independence Party.